Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing. Welcome to Construction Disruption, the show that explores what's working, what's new, and what's next in the worlds of construction and remodeling. I'm especially excited about today's show, but first, let me welcome our co-host today, Mr. Ethan Young. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing good, Todd. It's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, you haven't been on here in a while, and as we have tried to make these shows a little more intentional toward our intended audience of home improvement contractors, we haven't necessarily been doing one every week. I guess what do they call that? We're more about quantity than quality right now. How's that? The other way around. We're more about quality than quantity. Good job, Miller. Good job. Hey, fun thing, though, the last few weeks. So in the last month, and you've been a part of this too, Ethan, we have run a couple of dealer onboarding sessions for metal roofing contractors. Ran one here in Ohio and ran one this week in Virginia. During those times, we have introduced about 50 people to the world of the in-home sales process for premium metal roofing systems, and probably 25, 30, 35 companies. So that's exciting. There's a lot of energy in our industry right now, I think, for all of home improvement, not just premium quality metal roofing, but it's been a blast to be involved in those recent training sessions where we go extremely in depth on the in-home sales process of our products. So that's been fun. Thank you, Ethan, for your help with making those happen.
Absolutely. It's been cool to see, all these new people show up and learn more and be excited to, join the industry. So here's to hoping it, keeps growing.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Well, let's go ahead and get rolling with today's show. So I think kind of what we just talked about, everyone in home improvement is looking for an edge today. We're all trying to figure out what can make us stand ahead of the competition. Contractors out there trying to figure out what can help them really scale their business significantly. And today we're talking with someone who has done exactly that and continues to do it. Ed Kalaher is president and CEO of Window Depot USA. Based in East Central Ohio, Window Depot USA works with over 90 business owners in 85 markets across the country. They rank number 17 on the Qualified Remodeler Top 500 list, and they are the number 3 national firm in their industry. By working closely with individually owned partners to blend entrepreneurship with national structure and systems, Window Depot provides the perfect balance of strength and local service for their home improvement clients. And today we're going to talk with a gentleman who has led this successful organization into existence and through some considerable growth in recent years. So if you're a contractor out there trying to build something bigger than just a job for yourself, this is definitely a conversation today that you want to pay attention. Ed, welcome to Construction Disruption. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show today.
Hey guys, good morning. Pleasure to be here as well. Big fan. Love the production value, the content, the consistency of the pod. So thanks for inviting me.
Cool. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Well, for folks who may not be familiar, provide a little background. When did you start Window Depot USA? What are you guys all about? How does it work? How are you creating this network across the country?
So Window Depot was actually founded in 2001. And for those of us that have been, in the remodeling industry, or I should say specifically the replacement window industry for a good amount of time, they were founded in 2001 as kind of a reaction to the rise, the quick rise of window world. So there's been a lot of kind of franchise-like models that have come on, seeing their success in the marketplace and wanting to kind of emulate that success. So they were started in 2001, a very, very similar price point oriented model, to be frank. And at the time, I was in window manufacturing, so I was on up the supply chain. So I got to see a lot of these businesses in that vein kind of come to the market, and most go, to be honest. But in 2011, I had the opportunity to join some partners and actually acquire that brand. So 2011 is when we took over Window Depot, and for the last 15 years, we have been trying to remold it in the image of what we saw as a need for the marketplace. So the easiest way for me to explain what we are to people, because they're so familiar with the word franchise, is honestly, we're a hearts and minds franchise. That's what I call us.
Okay.
So it's not a formal franchise structure. It's a dealership program, a licensee program, to be technical about it. But the support systems, the methodology, the spirit of it is to support our dealers in the way that you would imagine a franchise would, right? From top to bottom, everything that you can imagine, every area of the business. How can we incrementally improve that dealer's independent business? So we just celebrated our 25th anniversary as a brand, and still feels like we're just getting started.
Well, congratulations on the anniversary. That's quite an accomplishment. It's great to still be growing after that time as well. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, as you looked at replacement window contractors out there, what were some of the challenges or problems you saw them facing that you really felt, by tapping into a national organization, this dealership model type thing, that you felt that they could benefit from and help bring them through some of those challenges?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's one I think about often, right, after 15 years of this endeavor. But I think it comes from two perspectives. One, the first business I ever started was 1999. So, early in my career, I went down the entrepreneurial path. And so I've always seen things through that lens. And like I mentioned, I spent the first 15 years or so of my career in window manufacturing and getting to service replacement window dealers specifically directly through that business, and just observe how they were operating, what the market looked like from my position in the supply chain. And what I saw were the things that I think would stick out, to anybody. These were, and again, this is why I talk about having an entrepreneurial perspective. I got to deal with hundreds of retail replacement contractors, and a pattern really started to emerge. Of course, these were people who founded their businesses on that entrepreneurial dream, right? They had an expertise in sales or perhaps installation, et cetera, and they would all face very, very similar challenges. They would, whether it be lead generation or just learning how to financially manage a business, obviously access to product, et cetera. So that was the first thing that really caught my eye, just seeing that pattern of issues that a typical replacement window entrepreneur would face out there. And then being in my position in the supply chain, I also saw other models that were like Window Depot, and I saw the issues with those. First I saw just the pure price point oriented retailers out there that really didn't understand from a financial fundamental standpoint that giving away product make your numbers look good and keep your crews busy and make the phone ring, but it's ultimately unsustainable. So I saw a lot of, again, independent retailers that didn't have that financial sense to really build a sustainable business. They were on an island as an entrepreneur. They wanted good product. And then it starts to make you think, why isn't there a franchise type of support system out there like that? So it just became a no-brainer. There's a need in our business to help those independents to band together, to share collective knowledge, to access quality products, et cetera, to get financial education. So, like I said, it's a big question, but all of those things kind of conspired when the opportunity arose for me to go from the wholesale side of the business into the retail side of the business. And I really felt like from an entrepreneurial background and my manufacturing experience, I thought I could bring a lot to the table and help these retailers who I had supported with product. But I thought I could support them in a lot of different ways to actually build sustainably profitable businesses, right? Assets of value, help them achieve that dream, that we all have as, blessing or curse as entrepreneurs.
I think that's interesting. And one of the things that I know often kind of occurs to me, I'll look at so many home improvement contractors who, spend their entire career just, busting their tails to build their business. And yet they haven't built anything more than something that became a job for them. And at the end of their career, they're thinking of retiring. They find out they really don't have anything of value there other than perhaps some used equipment and maybe a phone number someone might be interested in. So I'm kind of curious, as a Window Depot dealer, if you will, what is their opportunities to interact with each other or to interact with you and corporate? From a practical standpoint, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, I don't think there's any bigger fan of entrepreneurs in general or small business owners than me. I really appreciate them on many, many levels. One, just my own, 25 plus years of the grind, as it were. I've come to respect it. But also, you only sustain that long because of that spark, that original dream, the ability to control your destiny, to create some security, some financial independence, some abundance for your family. And that goes back to what we had just talked about. I saw so many scenarios. That's actually the norm in our business, what you just mentioned, right? These guys and gals start businesses with great intentions. They do good work, but they just don't have the perspective and the framework to turn that into an asset of value. And it does end up just being a job for them over time. And frankly, I hate that. I feel for them. I've lived through that myself. And it's probably the biggest thing that drives me is to help them turn that dream into a reality. Again, create that abundance, that financial security, et cetera. So this company, this network, Window Depot, is a vehicle for me to pursue my purpose, just like they want to pursue theirs. But to your question, to your point, from a practical standpoint, the networking, the sharing of ideas, the connecting with other entrepreneurs that are in the same exact position that they are, some behind their phase and maturity and some ahead to inspire them. It sounds cliche, but if I cast aside, the tremendous products that we can access, the leads that we can generate, the sales training we can provide, et cetera, the networking, the camaraderie, again, the idea sharing, the perspective building, honestly, it's the biggest part of what we have. When a entrepreneur, a small business owner, et cetera, when they can relax, kind of drop the part of the ego that made them an entrepreneur in the first place and connect with others that are, again, doing the same exact thing that they are on a daily basis, those conversations, to see how their eyes light up, because we think it's obvious, but it's just not. When you are in the fire of running a small business and trying to grow that asset, you might understand, kind of intellectually, that other people are doing the same thing and they're facing the same challenges, but you're just too wrapped up and it doesn't occur to you. And when you have that conversation, you say, "Oh my goodness, you're in the same boat. You feel that too." That those aha moments, and when those happen, right? When somebody joins our network, we want to connect them with mentors and peers that are kind of in the same stage of the business that they're in, and that's the first connection they get, whether it be to evaluate the services and such that they get from our office, or as they get into it, just to start that peer-to-peer type of process. now we can extend that, right? There's a lot of that connection online, but the real magic happens with our in-person networking, right? First and foremost, at our national event that we have in January each year, where there's 100 entrepreneurs in the same room talking about the same thing, comparing war stories, etc. We've broken that down into regional meetings so we can be a little bit more efficient and get people together, on a more routine basis. But the more things that we can do to foster, and again, as you said, like practically, how does that happen? It's just as you would expect. We try to foster it in our online community via, chat and email and real-time messaging that we have. We try to do online meetings with the group, but we really are always looking for ways to get people face to face, because again, that's where the magic really happens.
Sounds like a perfect opportunity for businesses to grow and thrive by learning from each other and sharing with each other. And people love to share with each other too, so share their experiences with others.
They do. People nod their head when you talk about these things, right? They're all going to say, "Yeah, of course." But it doesn't happen as much as people would think, and I don't know exactly why. I think it's a combination, right? I think it is part ego, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Right? People are a little close to the vest, and who can I share with? And that's the beauty of our network, because when you join, it's built around exclusive territories, so that should let your guard down. You're not having peer conversations with potential competitors. We're on the same team. We're representing the same badge, as it were, and that really lets people talk freely. Like, I've hosted dealer meetings on the manufacturing level, and those can be productive, but ultimately everybody in the room is a competitor. I've been to industry, trade shows, wonderful, soak in a lot of content, but you were in a room full of competitors ultimately, right? So being part of a network and a group that has, again, the same badge, a shared message, that they know they're working together cooperatively and they're not going to compete, it 10x's the amount of sharing that can happen out there. And as a consequence, it 10x's the amount of aha moments that we get to see. And that's, I'll overuse it, but that's the magic.
Very neat. Well, I'm curious. I mean, as you listen to folks these days, what are they talking about? Are they seeing any changes in consumer behavior in regards to home improvement? Or are there any things that are really high on people's minds right now?
In terms of the marketplace and the consumer, there are certainly there are certainly things, specific kind of quantitative changes that have bubbled up lately and are topics of conversation, such as just the research phase and the changing demographic of how people are consuming their information. We know that. There's also a longer period, it seems, for the last 3 to 4 years, from initial visit to the close of that job. There's still plenty of companies and a lot of our dealers, their goal is to close business on the first visit. But that certainly is changing. That consumer is changing again, how they consume their information. Just the time period, the decision-making time period, I think that's certainly different. But besides those kind of quantitative and just, real world kind of changes out in the marketplace, I think it's really, it's related to, that consumer attention span and how specifically technology is affecting that sales cycle. I think that's the biggest thing that's going on out there. And for the first time, it's not something that dealers are reacting to, acutely. It's the unknown of what is just around the corner because things are changing so rapidly. So I don't know if that was succinct necessarily, but it is it's a strange time to be in the industry, and I think I can say that honestly because we've both lived through 9/11, the Great Recession, COVID, etc. But certainly, I think decision-making timeline, how consumers are consuming that information in that research phase, but really, what is about to happen? Are there going to be, you mentioned earlier when we were speaking, online price tools. Those have been around for 20 years. They've never gained any traction, right? The industry doesn't really want that, but does the consumer want it enough to pull it through? We just don't know. And, that's all related to the research phase. It's all related to the age of our consumers and what they grew up with and how they expect to be treated in the buying process. So strange and interesting days.
Well, absolutely is. And we certainly have also noticed that extended buying cycle, if you will, or decision-making process. And, kind of tease that out a little bit, man. Do you think it's happening just because, again, as you talked about, people have so many options out there to gather information and to do research that they feel like they need to take that time to do that? Or maybe technology has just sped up and so people are actually entering the market sooner than where they used to enter, rather than really close to their decision time?
Yeah, I think those are certainly factors. We're in a finance society.
True.
The further you go back, people would kind of save for these type of improvements and they were ready to make decisions. There wasn't the access to information that they could really plan the research phase. So everything culminated at the point of the pitch, so to speak.
Right.
So, these days, all of those layers add to the empowerment of the consumer. They didn't necessarily save up for the purchase and get ready to be educated, by a contractor, make a decision, et cetera, et cetera. They said they can look at any time during the cycle. They can research and gather data long before they plan to make the decision. So I think all those things are just being layered in to the market, to our typical demographic, to who, I expect us to really be able to analyze that honestly in the next year better than we ever have, just because all of our CRMs now are moving into just natural language, queries to see that, because what we're talking about, those nuanced layers of how the consumer thinks and how that adds to the life cycle of research and purchase, et cetera. Those aren't always easy to glean. You're kind of going by gut and you're kind of going by anecdotal evidence in the field. But I think, we're going to have a much better handle on that, very soon.
Very good. Yep, good point. So I understand that you are working on a book geared towards small and mid-sized business owners and leaders. Tell us about that. What are you going to be calling it? What's it about? When can we expect to see it?
Well, our friend Ron must have told you about that. I appreciate it. But the book is called The Servant and the Savage. And really it started as a book for myself, quite frankly. But, every small business owner is familiar with that phrase, wearing all the hats. And when you're in that position, that kind of dependency, that can get, it can be invigorating when you start a business, but then it can be overwhelming as it goes on. Because when you wear all the hats and you're the center of everything that drives that business, the overwhelm comes from what do I do next? Where do I start? I had a dream when I started this business, but it's being clouded by all the things that are coming at me, and I'm trying to react, and et cetera. And that happened to me, many times along the way. And as I started to see patterns of how I could find clarity through all that chaos, it just became a way of thinking. So the servant and the savage really represent, two parts of a mindset to help specifically small business owners, right? Because we have unique challenges, to help them, again, find that clarity and be able to pursue that purpose. So the book is really mostly philosophy on how to develop that mindset, and then part strategy on how to execute it. Comes from kind of a balanced approach, whereas a lot of times I would see business challenges, mostly failures, to be honest with you, and say, how did I screw that up? And it usually came from, one of two sides, either I was kind of too empathetic and slow to react and act, or I just disregarded the signals and the people in front of me and just charged forward so fast that they burnt a bridge. So it kind of became the embodiment of that mindset that I knew I wanted to have. I wanted to lead with a servant's heart, but I wanted to, and I needed to execute like a savage in the marketplace. And once I started to think that way, uh, things just got easier. I'm sure part of it is experience and maturity, et cetera. But about 5 or 6 years ago, really kind of during COVID and kind of some of those reflective times, I said, I want to put this on paper. And the more I did, the more I thought it's helping me, but it also would help other small business owners. And that is my business. My day-to-day business is to help small business owners. So it's become kind of foundational content to a lot of the training programs that we develop for Window Depot, et cetera. But I hope it's something that'll be of service to any small business owner. So in terms of an elevator pitch, that was terrible, right? That should be succinct. But I actually just finished the final manuscript 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
So I actually haven't been asked the elevator pitch question before.
Well, I love the title, The Servant and the Savage is a great title. And, you're obviously a very thoughtful, guy who has processed this, been in the trenches, but also figured out how it's really impacted you, how it's impacted your family, how it's impacted your business.
Oh, my goodness. And that's why I said, when we started, 25 years, 16 with Window Depot. And again, sounds cliche to say, I think we're just getting started, but I think that's because I feel like I'm just getting started. And that's one of those, whatever you call it, catch 22s of life, I suppose, right? I'm about to be 53. I got out of university in 95, and I was, before that I was loading trucks in a window factory. So I've been in this replacement window game for 30 years. And between, that developing that perspective and just the 9/11s, the 2008s, the COVID, just the things that I've seen, I feel more empowered than ever. So again, 53, it's time to get busy. But this mindset, for me, it's a rallying cry. And again, that's why I wanted to put it on paper and share it with people, because not only when you're a small business owner is there really no work-life balance, right? That doesn't really exist. The goal is more to hone that business into something that is supports the lifestyle you want, but also when you're developing the traits that it takes to make that small business successful, I think you're developing the same traits that it takes to make you more successful as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a person in society. So when you said, home life and business, 100%. Yeah, I'm excited to share more of those philosophies.
Well, good stuff. We're going to watch for that to come out. And once it comes out and a couple of us have the opportunity to read it, we'll have you back on the show. It'd be fun to kind of unpack it a little bit and promote the book a little bit that way. So we'll do that.
That would be awesome.
I wanted to touch on something you brought up a couple times throughout, these challenges that small business owners face. And I know, obviously, you've had experience with it and you've been able to see all these different experiences that other small business owners have dealt with. Especially as they scale and as they learn to work on the business instead of work in the business, what are some of those challenges and how can they, how can they deal with them? How does Window Depot help them deal with them? So
yeah, no, it's an awesome question, and it's part strategy, part tactical, right? From the strategic side, we actually, being able to service so many dealers over the years. What I like to say is we don't have all the answers, but we probably have a better perspective than anybody out there. That's the fun part. So many conversations, reviewing so many financial statements, seeing so many different marketing plans. We can see and build that perspective, and we've really started to identify kind of 4 different phases of growth for the typical home improvement contractor. And for me, the typical home improvement contractor is really kind of $10 million and below. Like I know everybody will go to industry shows and think that I'm sitting in a room and because there's a guy on stage that scaled his business to 50 million, I'm surrounded by, a bunch of guys that are doing 10, 20, 30, million. That's just not the case. I mean, our industry is made up of $1 to $3 million contractors. That is the bulk. I don't care what anybody tells you. Now, most of those entrepreneurs in that $0 to $2.5, $3 million space, they absolutely have the ability to get to a 5, and a 5 is a significant milestone on a number of fronts. A few of them have the ability to go from 5 to 10, in my opinion, but and beyond 10, that's rare air. We have some dealers in our network that have now eclipsed that mark, and it's wonderful. But it takes a certain set of skills, it really does, and a certain outlook and a certain leadership style. So we've identified kind of these 4 zones, and in every zone, right, the challenges are a bit different. The needs of that entrepreneur, that business owner and leader, they change and they evolve over time. And so, each has their own set of challenges, and that's something that we really try to speak to and cross over into the tactical, right? So to speak to just kind of some of the brass tacks challenges that are out there, of course, they're the things that you might think about, right? You want to do more business, you got to have more opportunity, right? Lead generation is always going to be pretty much number one. Although I like to say that our business boils down to 2 things and 2 things only, and it's leads and it's people. You've got to have opportunity, but you're really not going to scale again as the center of the universe. You've got to have the right people. So having a leadership mindset to recognize those patterns, that's one thing. Again, that's the strategic side of the challenges that we see. But then we try to build programs, whether they be, training programs, coaching programs, physical, tools, et cetera, to help them address the challenges in each of the 4 phases. Now, I will say from a super practical standpoint, if you look up online and say, why do most small businesses fail? You're going to see very similar answers from every article. They're going to be about, not a fit in the marketplace. They're going to say cash flow. They're going to say that general, statement, et cetera. But really, I have rarely seen a home improvement contractor go out of business for lack of opportunity in front of them. By and large, the number one reason that I've ever seen is a lack of financial education. It is the financial fundamentals that will allow them to grow and scale a business, become sustainably profitable, and get out of that trading my time for money phase. So again, from a super practical perspective, the challenge of understanding the language of finance is the number one challenge, and that goes from startup and it continues through the $5, $10, $20 million contractor.
I think that's definitely dead on, and something we've talked about with other guests before, and it seems to come up. That's always a challenge for people that are used to and focused on offering their business and working with customers, and then finance and all this stuff is just kind of a different field for them, so they can struggle. But
it's a difficult topic to penetrate. It really is. You've got a lot of ego and insecurity that go into discussing financial acumen and education. It's something that we try to do from minute one, and honestly, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have said, product sales training, some of these things were the most impactful activities that we could do for our dealers. But if I answered that question today, it's going to be the networking, as I mentioned, and it's going to be financial education. We try to start from day one by saying, you're not going to join this network and become a part of this group without a solid financial plan. If you don't have one, we want to get right in there and build one with you. And this is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, because the people that generally want to start a business, right? They've got, some gravity to them, right? They've got some ego that drives them in a good way, right? But if you press and you play devil's advocate and you say, do you really understand these numbers? And if not, that is okay. Let's walk through this together. That they've got to bring down their barrier in order to let that happen. But it is by far and away the number one challenge. Markets can change, products can change, consumers can change. But in my experience, the companies that don't make it, they don't know the math that will show them the path. I'm going to coin that phrase.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a good phrase. So I like that. So, you would tell folks who may be looking for, gosh, what should I really be focusing on? Sounds like networking, relationships, but then your numbers and making sure that you understand them. And you're creating them. I find so many contractors don't even create a financial statement until a year-end statement, and then they're trying to hustle to pull everything together.
It's the norm. It's
Right.
not the exception. It shouldn't surprise me anymore, but it still does. The thing I feel blessed about recently is, being in the business for a good amount of time, starting to gray out, at least having some semblance of respect and authority. Just, okay, you've lasted this long, your message has been consistent. I've found that in the last couple of years, our dealers specifically have opened up more than they ever have to myself and our team, and allowed us in to help them really get that financial house in order. And I think when they see it, again, it becomes another aha moment. Things that, we may look at and think are common sense. It's just not. The people who comprise our industry, and the best of the best, right? They may be great at selling. They may be great at installation and craftsmanship. They may create the most wonderful customer experience out there and differentiate themselves from the competition, and they can have all of the market share that they want. But no one came from a bachelor's in finance, or sat for his CPA and said, you know what, I'm gonna go swing that hammer.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. So people are just missing that. We know that it doesn't get, really, that foundation doesn't get set in high school. It doesn't early on. It's not part of our upbringing. And fortunately, I was forced to review and produce financials from an early age, and I love to try to help and share that and show them that the mathematics, the math shows you the path. It always does.
So if there's a contractor out there saying, gee whiz, I really like what Ed's saying, love to be a part of the Window Depot network, what's that look like for them to join you folks?
So you mean if they said, this guy's telling me to drop my ego and then I don't know about the finances of the business, where can I go? No, I appreciate that. The easiest way is windowdepotpartnership.com. Obviously, any Window Depot search, we're on all the social channels, windowdepotusa.com. But if there's a dealer that says, hey, why am I doing this alone? Why wouldn't I connect with other remodelers? Why wouldn't I access financial education and other training programs that we have out there? Why wouldn't I want tremendous buying power to access better products to create a better customer experience? The easiest way is windowdepotpartnership.com. I love those conversations.
Well, Ed, it's been a real pleasure to have you with us today, and a privilege as well. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to be sure to share with our audience?
I think the only thing that comes to mind, and it's because you said something that got me excited about the connection between the business strategy and the life strategy. Is, part of the reason I wanted to put those thoughts on paper was, yes, for me, has evolved into helping our dealer base, but just sharing a message with entrepreneurs. But it's also about my children. I don't know if they'll be entrepreneurs, but I want them to have a glimpse of the qualities it takes in a human being to create a successful business. So the thought, and what I'm getting to is, I hope that all of us as small business owners preach the message to every young person that we can. You're young, start a damn business. It will teach you so much, about life. And if that helps them get to a point where they're 32 and they can see the world as I'm seeing it at 52, I think the world would be a better place. So that was just in my mind. I don't want to end on too philosophical a note, but the personal side, my children, I think young people should be entrepreneurs. I think it should be celebrated. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of yours. I love small business owners.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree. Well, this has been a great time together and very fun. So I have to ask you if you're willing to participate in something we call our rapid fire questions. So these are 5 questions. You don't know what they're going to be. Some may be silly. Some are a little more serious. All you have to do is give us a quick response. Are you up to the challenge?
I'll do my best.
Cool. I know you'll do great. Ethan, you want to ask the first one?
Yeah, I can do that. What's a new product or service that you've gotten recently that was like a game changer for you?
I think it's the voice recording and transcription softwares that are out there now. I even feel like I was a little bit late to that game, but now that we're in it, and now that we're seeing the patterns that can be recognized from those conversations, I think that's probably this year or next year. I think that's going to make the biggest impact in our industry right now. So the Ciros out there and the Rillas, you're welcome. I'll take that. Take that affiliate commission.
No, that's good insight too. I hear what you're saying.
It's hard, right? It's hard because there's not a lot of innovation that's happened in our business in the last 10, 20 years. We're kind of behind the curve in R&D as an industry niche, right? But that tech seems to be moving the needle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know even when I sit in industry meetings with other manufacturers, I'm even always challenging those manufacturers. We need to figure out what this thing looks like in the future because it can just be slow sometimes. And, human safety is involved, so it should be somewhat slow. Certainly shouldn't be rash. But I want to see the future before I die, I guess is where I'm at today. I don't know. Okay, question number 2. What did the 8-year-old Ed want to be when he grew up?
Ooh, 8-year-old. I think 8-year-old was a professional baseball player.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then evolved into professional basketball player, which was even more insane. But yeah, I think, 8 was all about Little League.
What's a ridiculous thing that you or your company has run into on a job site?
Ooh, a ridiculous thing.
Or memorable, either way.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and they go from, ridiculous is an interesting word. I think one of the most ridiculous things that I ever have seen is giving an estimate to replace a window that next to the window in a child's bedroom, there was a hole in the house. Not a hole in the wall, a hole in the house that I could put my hand through. But we were there to give estimates to replace those windows. Even with, I don't know why that came to mind. If we were here for another half hour, I could probably come up with 10 or 20 ridiculous things, as every contractor would.
So quick story on one of mine that I'm reminded of. So A number of years ago, we had someone pitch us on the idea of putting a roof on their house. They were part of a magazine and they were going to promote us online and stuff. And it was pretty small and we had time, so we went ahead and did it and actually sent out our own installer to put it on and all that type of stuff. About 2 years later, I get a call from a lady who I didn't know who was extremely frantic. And she's saying, "You put a roof on my house and I didn't know anything about it." Well, here the person we'd been working with was a renter, had never told us that. Why she wanted to do this, I have no idea. I still don't understand it. But in the end, the actual owner and I ended up pretty good friends, so it all worked out, I guess.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I thought of one more, and I don't want to be rude to a really good customer, actually, that's turned out. But a couple of years ago, we did a custom color match, and we installed flamingo pink windows.
Oh, wow.
Into a home. So I don't know if ridiculous is the word. That seems a bit negative.
Yeah.
But it sticks out, that's for sure.
But what a cool industry that we can actually do something like that if someone wants it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Okay. I think it's on to me now, Ethan. Yes. So what's a great piece of advice you would have for someone who's starting their own business? I feel like you've already given so many.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. That's also one I should have in the holster. So a piece of advice for somebody starting a business: know your numbers. Done. Know your numbers. If you want to talk about that for the next hour, let's go. But
yeah,
know the numbers. It's not enough to have a passion for the craft. It really isn't. It's enough to give you a job, as you mentioned earlier. It's not enough to build an asset of value. I think you're familiar with the E-Myth book series, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Michael Gerber.
Yep.
Right. And I think he calls it the fatal assumption, where entrepreneurs mistake their expertise in a product or a service for their ability to start a business, and it's absolutely right. And I would just funnel that down into, all right, how do you prioritize then what I got to focus on? My piece of advice: know the numbers, 100%.
Good advice.
All right, last question. Oh, this is a good one too. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but at the end of your days, what would you like to be remembered for? Like, what would you want your legacy to be?
Oh my goodness, that is crazy. That's the toughest right there. But I think it's easy for me, and it's easy for me because honestly of this book writing process. I don't need to be remembered as somebody who could build a business. I want to be remembered for doing my best to lift up those around me through the process. And I want my children to remember, someone that walked the walk, that had a servant's heart, but when it came down to it, could execute like a savage.
And looking forward to that book, The Servant and the Savage. And we'll have you back on the show. I want to talk more about that. Well, Ed, congratulations on building Window Depot USA the way you are. You have a great organization, and you are serving both consumers and contractors so extremely well with that servant's heart. If folks want to connect with you, you already told us a little bit, but again, what are the best ways for them to do that?
WindowDepotPartnership.com for kind of business inquiries. But of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well. And anywhere that you can find, Window Depot USA, it's not hard to find me.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I had fun.
Thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Construction Disruption with Ed Kalaher, President and CEO of Window Depot USA. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We're always blessed with great guests here on the show. And don't forget to leave a review or give us a thumbs up, whatever that might be. But until the next time we're together, keep on disrupting, keep on challenging the status quo, keep on looking for better ways of doing things. And most of all, don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Make them smile, encourage them, simple yet powerful things we can all do to change the world. So God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.